Again, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Beautiful fall day in Minnesota. God is good. I think we're a begin since it is 9 o'clock and you have all come timely and hopefully had something to eat and drink. My name is Janice Anderson. I'm honored and humbled to serve on the staff of the Basilica and work with so many of you who are incredible parishioner volunteers who inspire me every day. And I could get a little verklempt thinking about that. But what I really just want to do now is welcome you and to let you know, if you haven't already, and I know there was a lot of good buzz around the tables that we have, often we have organizations come and bring their tables or bring information on a table. Today we have our ministries, our Basilica ministries present, and there is a list of them in your program. And the reason I'm naming it now is because we're just very excited about this program and grateful for Kay Pranis being here and Sister Janet and Eric Anderson who came from Chicago. And as we began to think about doing something on restorative justice, Father Daniel had said, if we do something, we should do something about how it changes culture, how it transforms culture. And then I reached out to Kay, and I invited her. I asked her if she'd be interested in coming, and she said, well, for the last several years, I've been most interested in how restorative justice transforms culture. And I'm like, come, Holy Spirit. This is good. And so here we are on this day. The tables, the groups around the tables are hopefully ways that you might continue what starts today. What has already started, so it's brought you here. But today, the Spirit is at work. The wisdom that we will receive from our presenters is much. And maybe there'll be some way you want to continue this work. And these are 5 different ministries that you might consider. That's why they're here, just to be available. So we can say more another time, but what I would like to do is introduce and invite Father Daniel to really get us kicked off. And again, thank you for being here.
Testing. Good morning. Great to be with all of you, and on a kind of rainy morning, this is a wonderful place to be. I want to thank Janice Anderson and her team and teams who are co-sponsoring this morning. And one of the things about Janice is she always deflects any sort of credit, but she lives this, she lives restoratively. And one of the ways that we've been able to bring restorative justice culturally to the Basilica is because so many elements were already in place to do that. I do want to begin with a little prayer and ask the Lord to be with us. Loving God, we thank you for the gift of your Son. We thank you for the gift of faith. We thank you for the gift of restoration and healing. Heal our hearts, heal our communities, heal our nation and world. And we ask this always through your Son's name and through the intercession of our Blessed Mother. In your name we pray. Amen. So what does restoration and healing look like? You might have seen the images yesterday of Sophia Forkas leaving the hospital. She had been shot in the head on the 27th of August, and it looked very, very dire, and the doctor said it would likely be she would be the third victim. And we see the power of community, the power of prayer, and to see that beaming young girl who the doctor said was close to brain death, exit the limousine as she hugged her classmates at Annunciation is a beautiful thing. So stories of goodness and light amidst challenges and darkness. Yeah, that is worth an applause. I agree. I want to thank Eric and Sister Janet and Kay Pranis. I'm big fans of all 3 of them and their work. I told Kay this is the first time we've met that I've been an admirer of Kay Pranis for years, and we use a lot of her writing in our law school class. And so I'm really grateful to the 3 of them for being present. And again, Sister Janet is like Janice and deflects credit, but I will say she's one of my favorite Catholics in the entire country, just because of her humility, her commitment, and her prophetic voice. It's really inspiring to call her a friend and colleague, so I really am grateful. I do want to give a shout out to the folks who have come, is it the furthest or the farthest? That was always a word that tripped me up, but from Colorado we have Maggie and Fiona Hall, and Maggie is the daughter of my godfather Taylor, and Fiona the granddaughter, and they came here all the way from Colorado, and I thank them. I thank all of you for your presence. This is really a wonderful turnout this morning, and really grateful that you're here. In addition to the many groups at Basilica of St. Mary who are sponsoring this morning, our initiative on restorative justice and healing at the St. Thomas Law School is also co-sponsoring, and I thank Julie Craven, who is our Associate Director, and I thank Izzy Peters, who is our Restorative Justice Coordinator, which spans both the work at St. Thomas and also here at the Basilica. I thank them for their co-collaboration and all their commitment. And I'll tell a story in a minute of a powerful experience that Julie and I had with Janine Geske in the Wheeling, West Virginia Diocese. When you talk about restorative justice transforming culture, that's a great example of what happened. So that will be in just a minute. I do want to give a notice for an event coming up November 12th. We will have In the Aftermath of Tragedy, Seeking Restoration and Healing. It'll be 5:30 to 7. There will be an opportunity for circles. And I'll start things off, and we're going to have a trauma therapist who's going to talk about the nature of trauma, collective trauma, and healing. There's an op-ed that I had written that was published this morning about the need for communities of faith to open their doors and be a source of healing. We also have, because I think this is going to be an experience of beauty. If Johan were here, he would talk about how beauty heals. Our luminescence will begin at the end of the month, and it's an extraordinary show. I had an opportunity to take in a show on Wednesday evening at a magnificent cathedral. It's an experience of light and music and story, and that will be beginning at the end of the month. So put that on your calendars. And our friends, Sister Janet and Eric, can come on back. It'll be playing all the way through the end of January. And I know that they'll offer definitions as well. And again, I thank our presenters. The key to restorative justice is living it, right? You can talk about it, but the key is to live it. And as practitioners, and I know they would say the same, it's a deeply humbling work because you're learning. I did a restorative process this summer, and I learned a lot of lessons, including from mistakes that I made. And so it's always humbling doing this work because you see the power of restorative justice literally transform lives, but you also see the complexity of harm and the nature of harm and how challenging it is and how much time it takes. It really is important work. It's necessary work, but it takes a lot of time and intentionality, and it takes the commitment to live restoratively, to live those values, and that's what transforms culture. Restorative justice is a philosophical and practical approach to harm that fosters accountability and healing, and it is used across multiple stakeholders. It has become a worldwide movement. It's rooted historically in the practices of First Nation peoples of North America, New Zealand, pre-colonial Africa. It was very much a part of their culture. And I would note that their cultures were and are much more social and communal than ours is. One of the challenges in the United States is hyper-individualism and the seeking of autonomy in all things. It becomes an idol in American culture. And so it becomes a challenge here in the United States. The other challenge in the United States, including in the Catholic communion here in the country, is overcoming the knowledge gap. Sometimes and even in writing this op-ed, when I described the work of the law school, I didn't say restorative justice. Why didn't I do that? Because immediately a third to maybe even half of listeners will stop reading and may stop reading and may stop listening, because we have that gap that we have to overcome with regard to language and bias. Sadly, what I've seen, and we got to overcome this as well, as lawyers and priests are among the most skeptical with regard to restorative justice. And I was as well, and Janine Geske talked about her bias as well, but what turned our hearts is we saw it work consistently and effectively. And we were witness to the stories Janine talks about. She was in the presence in the Green Bay Correctional Facility, Maximum Correctional Facility, of men who were telling parables, right? They were stories that were deeply moving. And so our hearts were transformed, and that's what can happen with restorative justice. I remember a classmate who was coming here for our launch of our restorative justice initiative, and he was from another diocese. He was on our advisory board, and the priests were giving him grief and said, well, how about retributive justice? Well, friends, in the criminal space, that primary use of retributive justice, that hasn't worked out too well. The data's all there. John Choi said at the National Catholic Restorative Justice Conference 2 years ago at St. Thomas that if mass incarceration was the answer to crime and harm, we'd have the safest country in the world, right? And that's not the case. So restorative justice is another way. It can be an adjunct. It can go along with the criminal legal process, but there's all sorts of ways that it can be effective. Now, why has it become a worldwide movement, including having some effect here in the United States in school settings? Certainly the Precious Blood Ministries that Sister Janet and Eric are a part of, in other settings as well. Stillwater Prison, where our law students attend a Restorative Justice 101 session. Here's why I think it's become a worldwide movement. It's really effective at responding to harm, including multi-levels of harm. It is consistent with our human nature, which is both social and also desires to be healed and restored. Very consistent with human nature. It's highly adaptable. You can use restorative principles and restorative practices. So you have restorative justice, which is the umbrella, and a number of restorative practices are under that umbrella. But you can really be adaptive in terms of its use. It's effective across multiple disciplines and also disciplines and professions. You can use it in a lot of different ways. And then one of the things we've seen in the Catholic space, when of course it's inclusive of multiple stakeholders, including the community. One of the really cool things that I've seen is how effective and how correlative restorative justice is with Catholic social teaching values and principles. When you look at the human dignity, solidarity, subsidiarity, that a problem or an issue should be dealt with on the most appropriate basic social level. The common good, which is the social conditions in a society that promote personal and collective flourishing. Restorative justice is seeking to foster flourishing both personally and also communal flourishing as well. There are so many ways. Catholic social teaching's response to social sin and structures of sin, to be prophetic in response to that. That's what restorative justice does. It names the harm in a way that just doesn't end at the harm, but says now the harm has to be repaired. How do we best repair it? So that's been a wonderful thing to see. Of course, the church has a lot of work to do when the institutional church is a source of harm, right? We've got to work on justice within our own communion so we can credibly be a source of healing. I have been so moved. I've read a ton of Pope Leo's writing, the tremendous continuity between Pope Leo and Pope Francis in their care for those who are harmed, in their resolute determination to be a voice for justice, in their courage, in their very effective way that they have worked very well with women and have promoted. We have our friend Sister Raffaella Petrini, who is running the Vatican City-State, right? She was appointed by Pope Francis, I believe began that work March 1st, and she has an archbishop reporting to her. That's a positive development in the church, friends. And why was she appointed to that position? Because she was the most capable, right? She was the best person to appoint to that position. So to see that beautiful continuity between the leaders in our church. Now, I realize that this isn't only about using restorative justice in ecclesial settings, but also in other communities and beyond the church as well. And then finally, just a word about the power to transform culture. Julie and I I was on sabbatical in February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And I was in a really lovely setting in the Hill Country. Archbishop had allowed me to go off for 3.5 months to study restorative justice. And I had been appointed liaison for restorative justice and healing, but I needed to do more study and more work in this area. And it was, it's really was a wonderful setting. It was quiet. It was about an hour out of San Antonio, and I was very happy by myself there. Well, then the call came in that the Diocese of Wheeling wanted to do a restorative justice session. They had a bishop who, it was the trifecta of harm. This fellow was corrupt, had been the source of a lot of abuse. It was highly detailed in the Washington Post, did a really good job in their reporting. And of course, I had to go. Restorative justice is about being a practitioner first and foremost. And so I left my cozy confines. We went to Wheeling, West Virginia. You don't fly direct. There's no direct flights to Wheeling. I think you fly into Pittsburgh. And it was Ash Wednesday. You can't make this stuff up. It's, God sets us up. It's Ash Wednesday. People have big crosses on their foreheads. And Julie and I thought that, maybe there'd be 20, 25 people because it was sleeting rain and ice, and like 75 people showed up. They had been harmed, and they were seeking healing. And it was so humbling and so beautiful and so sad to hear the stories, but also rooted in hope. That diocese took that experience, and literally it has led to a cultural transformation of the diocese and their use of restorative justice. The diocese looks much different than it did in February of 2020, and very, very moving. So 2 other examples, or 3 really quickly. At the St. Thomas Law School, we're just at the beginning of what a restorative culture could look like at St. Thomas. We have to introduce our first-year students to this during their first-year orientation. That's not done yet, but we will do that. We have, every time we teach the course, it's full, and there's a waiting list, because students are yearning, law students, for another way to approach harm, including criminal harm. So each year, 24 students are being educated. They're going out. They describe the experience at Stillwater Maximum Security Prison as one of their most consequential experiences of law school. And they're so humbled by the incarcerated men and how their presence is a sign of hope for them. So that has been a moving thing. There was a racial justice issue and incident that was harmful to a particular student. And rather than respond through the normal way that is set up, God bless Lisa Schultz, she's no longer the associate dean. She said, I wondered if we could do a restorative process. Amazing what happened. Everybody was in tears. It was on Holy Thursday. Again, can't make this up. And I'm going, how am I going to fit in a restorative process and then be at the Basilica? And you went around the table. The other faculty member had no idea what he was stepping into. I tried to prep them as well as I could, but law professors live in their head a lot. It was deeply impactful and moving for everybody. And I thought to myself, what we're doing here is we're washing each other's feet. This is what's happening, on Holy Thursday. We're going around, we're being vulnerable, we're serving, we're being emotional, and it was deeply moving. That can be an entree, an impetus for a wider cultural transformation at our law school. And then finally at Basilica of St. Mary. Every December we get together and we have a complex issue that could be an ecclesial issue that's deeply impacted people. We have people who speak into that. We set the groundwork and the kind of theological basis, and then we have circles. This year we're going to have folks who are divorced Catholics, whether they've been remarried in the church or remarried outside of the church, or not possibly remarried, but a number of folks in the Catholic Church have experienced harm. And again, what we'll do is come together and have a woman who will speak, and then we're going to process through circles. And next December we'll do that again. We've had experiences where we've had challenging situations in the parish, and we've chosen to respond with a restorative process. It doesn't always work. It has worked powerfully in a couple of situations, and it's deeply moving. I think we're just at the tip of what a restorative culture could be, what it could look like at the Basilica of St. Mary. So I've already taken too much time. I get excited when I get to talk about restorative justice. But thank you for your presence, and again, thanks to our speakers for their wisdom today.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Daniel, very much. Appreciate it. Right now, we're going to actually experience a restorative ritual, a welcome ritual, an introduction ritual. So I'm going to pass you right to your circle keeper. There is.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kay Pranis, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning. I want to begin with saying a couple of things about our space. So, first of all, everything in a circle is an invitation, not a directive. Right? So, if something doesn't feel right for you, then you get to pass on it without removing yourself from the group. Second thing is it's very important to take care of yourself physically. So feel free to turn your chair around for this part of what we're doing together, if that's more comfortable for you. If you need to use the restroom, you do not need to take a break, because we're really trying to hold presence with one another, and if your body's completely distracting you, it's hard to stay present. And if sitting isn't the best position for you, there's lots of space here. Feel free to go out and stand in the spaces where you wouldn't be blocking anyone else. So take care of your body. And the last thing is that it would never be my intention to cause harm. I've learned that that can happen inadvertently. So if anything that I do or say doesn't feel good for you, if you can, I invite you to let me know so that I can correct that and I can learn from that. So I'm really happy to be with you this morning. I want to thank everyone for being here on a Saturday morning with us to explore the vision of restoring and reclaiming our humanity, our birthright to belong and to have meaning in our lives. I will offer ideas here. I can only speak what feels true to me. What feels true to me may not feel true to you, so feel free to leave it behind if it does not resonate with you. I will speak in declarative sentences with the understanding that I'm only declaring for myself, not for anyone else. I also want to offer another way to relate to what I say. In a circle training in Canada many years ago, an Indigenous elder shared this insight. A teaching is a rekindling of a truth we were born with. A teaching is a rekindling of a truth we were born with. If anything I say resonates, it's probably because you already knew it. Somewhere deep in your body or your soul. You may not have known that you know it, but when you hear it, you recognize it as familiar. In that sense, I have nothing new to teach anyone. Quick note about my background and experience. I'm a trainer and writer with a focus on peacemaking circles, one of the processes that emerged in the restorative justice movement. I came to this work accidentally over 35 years ago. I have no formal training in any related field. I'm deeply indebted to many teachers on my journey, one of whom is in this room, but I'm especially indebted to Indigenous and BIPOC teachers. I want to share a bit about the circle process because it's the main focus of my remarks, and we will experience circle together later this morning. Circle's a dialogue form characterized by sitting in a circle of chairs, using a talking piece to regulate the dialogue. Talking piece is an object that's passed around the circle in order, and each person speaks only when they have the talking piece. It's characterized by starting and finishing in a deliberate way, by engagement of the participants and creating a relatively safe space together, including a conversation about shared values. This results in shared responsibility for the quality of the interaction in the space. It's characterized by focus on building relationships before doing work together, and an invitation to bring feelings and meaning or sense of spirit into the dialogue when so moved in your turn with the talking piece, and by reliance on the lived experience of the participants as a source of wisdom. Circle's a space that helps us remember what it means to be human and who we are as humans when we're at our best. We're not always at our best. We get hurt and we cause hurt. And we have an amazing capacity for recoverability. Alice Walker says, I can be almost terminally grief-stricken because things are so dire. But at the same time, there's a real lightheartedness about just the recoverability of life, of how things change, how they are not the same ever again. The restorative framework and the peacemaking circle process nurture our capacity for recoverability. What do we need to recover from? I suggest that we need to recover from the harmful aspects of our cultural training, which has been inculcated in us since the day we were born. I believe that we live in a culture that substantially thwarts the most basic human needs. Mary Clark, a biologist, asserts that the most fundamental human needs are meaning and belonging. We live in a culture that systematically undermines meaning and belonging for everyone. The consequences of that are harsher for some people than others, but our cultural habits put everyone at risk of not belonging and not having meaning in their lives. so that even those who appear to do well in this culture live in constant fear of losing meaning and belonging, losing status in the hierarchy of worthiness. I do not see this as a conspiracy. I think mostly is the result, inadvertent result, of many factors. For example, the fast pace of our lives, the lack of reflective spaces, the corrosive focus on material goods, punitiveness in our response to harm, extreme individualism, hierarchies that assign more value to some people than others. All of these elements of our culture undercut caring human relationships. These elements of our culture disconnect us from one another and often disconnect us from ourselves. Polarization is a natural outcome of a culture that disconnects people from one another and is built around hierarchies of power. Socialization in this culture teaches members to compete, to focus on scarcity and lack, to aspire to be better than those around them, which requires constantly ranking self and others. We teach control over others as the way to meet our needs. We teach distrust of the stranger. We teach that happiness is directly correlated with material goods. We teach ourselves to listen to the external voice, but not the internal voice. That our worth is determined by others, not by our own sense of inner peace. In this culture, we are structured around winners and losers. Being a loser is the ultimate disconnection and negation of meaning. Disconnection in our human evolution always meant death. Being a loser is a form of death. We are hardwired to live. Thus, we are highly motivated to not become a loser. We will sometimes be willing to harm another in order to not be the loser. We will sometimes compromise our values in order to not be the loser. Causing harm is not our initial impulse, but we will engage in harm in order to not be the loser. Being a loser is too painful. These messages are in our culture all the time. Many people resist these messages because we have a fundamental impulse to be in good relationship with others, to be in community. But it takes a great deal of courage, intention, and good luck to chart a path not shaped by those norms. And even then, we tend to apply kindness, care, and empathy only to those we identify as part of our group, not to those who annoy us, threaten us, or don't love us. I believe this disconnection, this lack of belonging, along with the lack of meaning, are major drivers of high levels of addiction, depression, alienation, and loneliness in our society. If disconnection and lack of meaning are the cause of these massive social dysfunctions, then the solution is connection in relationships that engage around meaning in our lives. In contrast to those prevailing norms, the prevailing mindset I described here, restorative justice and peacemaking circles invite us to act from a different set of underlying norms. The mindset of restorative justice and peacemaking circles. My passion for the restorative justice framework is engaged by the ways the restorative justice framework can be used to change communities rather than for its application to individual experiences of harm and repair. My work in Brazil exposed me to the concept of a culture of peace and deepened my sense of the potential of the circle process, in particular, to move us toward cultural transformation. I believe that a culture of peace is a way of describing a culture in which all parts of the culture live well together. For me, that includes the rocks and waters, plants and animals, as well as the humans. Every part of the interconnected community of a place. Consequently, the vision of restorative justice is a vision of living together well in a good way. That means living in a way that attends to the well-being of each individual and the well-being of the whole. The well-being of every individual requires that every individual be treated with respect and dignity. That each person is valued for their unique gifts, and that each person has sufficient autonomy to find their own purpose in harmony with the common good. To create a community that achieves that vision, we will need to shift our underlying assumptions about human nature and the nature of the universe. Assumptions that shape our habits and norms on several dimensions. We need to shift from separateness to interconnection and interdependence. This is the conclusion of quantum physics and modern biology. Nothing exists by itself. Everything exists in relationship to something else. Caroline Westerhoff, in Conflict, the Birthing of the New, writes, "We were created to be indispensable, dependent liberators. But such a self-concept will not be achieved easily by most of us. Dependence, the keystone, is not a state we have been taught to acknowledge as healthy reality. We have too long been admonished to stand on our own, a posture finally and tragically impossible for us. Our deep-seated notions of separateness must be seen as fantasy, deluding and dangerous dreams. To the degree we can see ourselves as connected to everyone and everything in the creation, we can be freed from the terrible burden of having to be right, of having to be adequate. We need to shift from external controls to internal controls. External controls violate a fundamental human need for autonomy, generating resistance that might otherwise not be there. And external controls require enormous amounts of energy and constant oversight, and they erode healthy relationship. Internalized self-control based on respectful relationships and non-coercive influence is more efficient, more reliable, maintains human dignity, and nurtures healthy relationships. We need to shift from deficit analysis to asset analysis, to strength-based thinking. deficit analysis drains energy, often overlooks what is working, promotes fear and hopelessness. Asset analysis identifies positive starting points for change and promotes hope and engages creativity. We need to shift from hierarchies to self-organizing systems. Hierarchies are fundamentally inefficient because they require so much control and oversight to make sure that the lower levels do what the higher levels want them to do. And they suffer from poor information at the top, a function of shoot the messenger dynamics. Self-organizing systems, united by a shared vision and principles, allow decisions to be made at the lowest possible level, which are guided by first-hand information. They allow adaptation and modification for local context and changing circumstances. They keep power moving so it does not concentrate in one place. We need to shift from primacy of the mind and intellectual analysis to multiple ways of knowing and seeing. We have privileged intellectual forms of knowing over all other forms of knowing. Formal academic kinds of knowing over life experience kinds of knowing. It is clear now that there are many ways of knowing, through the body, through feelings, through analysis, through lived experience. We need all the ways of knowing to make wise decisions. We need to shift from individual expertise to collective wisdom. We need to shift from having answers to not knowing as a skill, having curiosity. And we need to shift from human nature as the problem to human nature as the solution. When we see human nature as the problem, we see humans as needing coercive structures to constrain natural impulses. This produces fear-based and power-based structures to try to control the behavior of others. This approach depends on the fear of punishment as the motivation for appropriate behavior. This view of human nature sees humans as fundamentally inclined to harm others unless constrained. It is a bleak perspective on our nature, but in fact permeates our social structures. Families, churches, schools, social services, and justice systems. Gerard Vanderhaar writes, "The story of the human race is characterized by efforts to get along much more than by violent disputes, although it's the latter that make the history books. Violence is actually exceptional. The human race has survived because of cooperation, not aggression." I was in Mexico City a couple of years ago, not as a driver. I wouldn't drive there, but I was in a car and watching on this enormous highway and thinking, what a testimony to our cooperativeness. Every time you get in a car, it's an incredible testimony to our cooperativeness as human beings. And we don't even have to like each other in that circumstance. That when you think about modern cities, it's an incredible exercise in cooperativeness. But that's not the part of ourselves that we pay attention to most of the time. When we see human nature as the solution, We see humans as having a deep and powerful drive to be in good relationship with others. We need to belong. We evolved in community. Our genes have not forgotten that we need one another to survive. That part of human nature is not nurtured in modern societies. In fact, that part of human nature is frequently undermined in our culture. We are taught to distrust, to not allow others too close. We are taught that we will be judged and evaluated all the time. We are taught to conform with external expectations and to suppress the inner voice that calls for love, empathy, and vulnerability with others. Human nature as the solution reminds us of our vast human desire and potential to be in good relationship with others. That does not mean we all agree. It means that we are all aware of shared values like caring, honesty, integrity, respect, and that we stand together on our shared values to understand the ways we are different, the ways of seeing differently. These shifts from separateness to interconnection, external controls to internal controls, deficit analysis to asset analysis, hierarchies to self-organizing systems, primacy of the mind to multiple ways of knowing, from individual expertise to collective wisdom, from having answers to not knowing as a skill, human nature as the problem to human nature as the solution, are very hard work. It requires an ability to look at everything with new eyes. Continuous self-awareness, feedback, reinforcement, and inspiration are necessary to make and sustain these shifts, and they cannot be done alone. Community support is essential in making these shifts. A culture of peace requires a deep and sustained change in cultural norms and habits in order to make these shifts. The peacemaking circle process gives a concrete methodology for practicing the habits of living together well by providing an intentional space to practice new habits of being together. Changing our habits requires practice, practice, and more practice. These shifts require a mindset that's different than the mindset of our socialization. Several principles have been identified that characterize that mindset that guides us to restorative behavior in restorative processes and in our daily interactions with one another. We refer to those as the 7 core assumptions. First is that the true self in everyone is good, wise, and powerful. This is a profound idea and a difficult one. The idea is that there is a best self, a spirit, in each of us that, though sometimes buried, is never destroyed by what we do or what happens to us. It is a belief that there is good in everyone, even if it's not visible at all. This is a common theme in world religions. The second assumption is that the world is profoundly interconnected. The interconnectedness is at the core concept of restorative justice and circle process. There are 2 important implications of interconnectedness. The first is that the profound interconnectedness of the universe means that we are never alone. We are connected to everything in the universe. The second implication of interconnectedness is that we have responsibility. Since we are connected to every part of the universe, everything we do impacts every other part of the universe. Martin Luther King writes, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you can be what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. The third core assumption, all human beings have a deep desire to be in a good relationship. Human beings evolved in community because our survival has always depended on being in good relationship with others. Our genes carry an impulse to be in good relationship with other humans. Core assumption number 4, all human beings have gifts and everyone is needed for what they bring. No one is more important than another in a restorative process or a circle. Every perspective is important for an understanding of the whole. Everyone has wisdom unique to their own life experience and placement in the universe. The 5th core assumption, everything we need to make positive change is already here. We have the capacity and wisdom already in us. We have enormous collective wisdom and deep wells of desire to be in good relationship. We do know how to live well together when we access that value-based collective wisdom. 6, human beings are holistic. We are not mechanical beings reduced to chemical reactions and electrical impulses. To access the wisdom of the whole human being, we need to access all of our aspects: mental, physical, emotional, and meaning-making or spirit parts of ourselves. We cannot separate feelings from thinking and thinking from feelings. Feelings and thinking interact, and they need one another for a fullness of understanding and wisdom. And the 7th core assumption, we need practices to build habits of living from the best self. We live in a culture with habits that disconnect us from our best self and habits that disconnect us from each other. If we wish to access our best self and collective wisdom, we will need to change habits we have learned in our socialization. It takes practice to change habits. These are the principles that guide us in our quest to live together well through restorative practices and peacemaking circles. They are a description of the world we wish to live in, and thus a vision of the direction we're trying to move in our daily acts, words, choices, and decisions. So how can we practice? When we participate in the circle process, we're practicing skills important for living together well. In circle, we're practicing self-regulation without oppression, without being silenced, waiting our turn to speak, listening deeply. This self-regulation is not based on fear, but on autonomy and choice. We're practicing self-awareness, awareness of our own emotions, desires, and fears without becoming completely self-absorbed, because that awareness of self is in the context of awareness of others' emotions, desires, and fears at the same time. We are practicing empathy, understanding how something looks or feels to someone else, something different from what it is to us. The talking piece allows us to look at something through someone else's eyes. We do not have to adopt that way of seeing, but we can momentarily see through their eyes and understand better what it looks like for them. We're practicing an awareness of the impact of our behavior on other individuals and on the group. We're practicing self-expression, speaking for ourselves, not relying on someone else to speak or act for us. We're practicing respect across differences. We're practicing non-domination. The circle is a profound practice of democracy. All voices are heard in the circle, and all voices excuse me, have influence in the decisions made in the circle. Every participant is treated with dignity and respect, and consequently, every participant feels that their voice matters. We're practicing full presence and attentive listening. For others to feel they belong, they need to feel seen and heard. Practicing full presence and attentive listening ensures seeing and hearing others. We're practicing integration of multiple perspectives in a process of uncovering collective wisdom. And we're practicing curiosity and wonder, which opens space for newness and growth and learning, which are essential to community vibrancy. These are critical individual skills for building healthy community, for promoting reconciliation and establishing sustainable peace rooted in justice, in right relationship. These are the skills for living together well. These skills are practiced over and over and over in circle process. Circle process provides other benefits for nurturing healthy community as well. Circle is a place to be more mindful and intentional about the values we want to guide how we treat one another in community. Values conversations are a regular part of circle practice. The circle strengthens our listening muscles, which are needed to really hear each other in order to know each other. The circle opens more space for the voices of those who are often not heard, giving us insight into their perspective and the wisdom of their lived experience. The circle slows down the pace of interaction so that we can be more reflective and less reactive, allowing us to break cycles of impulsive reactions between ourselves and others. The circle provides everyone with an experience of positive personal power, giving all of us an opportunity to practice constructive use of power. The circle increases the emotional intelligence of everyone in the circle, increasing our capacity for grace, understanding, perspective, and managing the complexity of human nature. The circle increases commitment to the common good, clarifying individual and collective needs, making it easier to find a healthy balance between individual and collective needs. The circle's a place of respite from the unrelenting pressures of our daily lives that is accessible to anyone once they are familiar with it. It does not take a sophisticated education to support others in a circle or to bring circle into your personal life. The circle helps us remember the best of our potential as human beings. Humans have a profound need to belong. At a genetic level, we know that separation or exclusion from community means death. In our distant history as a species, death was the consequence of being expelled from the community. We need to belong so much that we will violate other values in order to belong. If we are not accepted in a positive community, we will join a negative community in order to belong somewhere. Gangs are a community that accepts people who are not allowed to belong in mainstream society. In a culture of peace, everyone must feel they belong and they are valued. The peacemaking circle process is structured to include all voices, treat everyone with dignity, and build connections among participants. The circle honors every participant as important to the well-being of the whole. Belonging is organic in the circle. The peacemaking circle gives us a concrete process to begin shifting the culture on all the dimensions described earlier, and in that process, from a culture of exclusion to one of belonging. The circle process offers a practical, accessible methodology for practicing the habits of a culture of peace, so that we can internalize those habits and rely on them even when we're not sitting in circle. Humans created our current culture. Humans can change culture to serve our individual and collective well-being more effectively. The restorative justice framework and the peacemaking circle process provide a practical pathway for working toward a culture of peace, toward living together well. We do have shared values as human beings. For over 30 years, I have engaged audiences and circle groups in conversations about the values that represent our best self. Every group, across all kinds of differences, identifies the same values. The words vary, but the essence is the same, no matter who the group is. These are the universal human values. I believe they're programmed in our genes because they are necessary for survival. The values of the best self are the values required to be in good relationship with others. Respect, care, honesty, integrity. How those values are expressed varies, but the underlying value appears to be universal. We also know that those core values can be buried deeply, covered over by adverse life experiences, by self-protection resulting from trauma. The circle seeks to help everyone find those core values in themselves and see them in others. My experience sitting in circle gives me hope that there is a positive way forward, even in the very fraught world we are living in right now. Over and over in circle, I have seen people transcend hostility and polarization through experiencing their common humanity. From the deep sharing of individual stories, perspectives, and ideas, I've watched the emergence of collective wisdom, a wisdom greater than the wisdom of any individual in the group. The collective wisdom that emerges in circle is based on honoring the dignity of every participant and sharing power. The structure of the circle process limits the ability of anyone to dominate the dialogue. From so many people, from so many years of training people in circle facilitation, I have learned a very important principle. In a process where everyone has a voice, the group will not allow any one person to take over, including the facilitator. In a process where everyone has a voice, the group will not allow any one person to take over. The circle creates space for everyone to have voice, and consequently is a powerful antidote to domination. The circle offers each participant an opportunity to experience positive personal power that does not take power away from anyone else. As the talking piece moves around the circle, the power moves around the circle, sharing the power. In modern societies, people hunger for meaning and belonging, but our cultural habits and norms often undermine meaning and belonging. I believe circles offer a gentle way to reclaim our human capacity for meaning and belonging in every aspect of our life. Sitting in circle, we are invited to remember who we really are and what matters most in our lives. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kay. I'd like to invite Eric and Janet to come up and take us to the next talk around implementing this incredible process of circles and restorative justice.
Good morning. Yeah, this one works. Good morning again. So we're
You can't hear him? That's not usually a problem for us.
I asked if they were sure about the microphone.
So, thank you, Kay. Oh, here you are. Like, where did she go? Thank you so much, Kay. And I'm glad, I think we're recording this, is that correct? I am very grateful because there's a lot in that and a lot of wisdom and that I want to reflect on and soak in. Thank you, Kay. My name is Sister Janet Ryan, and I work at Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Janice Anderson, for organizing this and inviting Eric and me and Kay to be here today with you. To begin, Eric and I primarily do circle trainings in prisons across Illinois. And I'd like to share with you an excerpt from something one of the gentlemen who was in our circle training wrote, and use that as an opening for us. His name is Ed, and he's originally from Belize. And the title is Life's Circle. I would have to set my sights over the horizons at the heights on which the eagle soars, just to make up for the bogeys in my past, in need of eagle soars. And even though you can still see my scars, sores, and blemish, they replenish me, reminders that I won't diminish when my love will last infinity. There's nothing in this world that can't be hurdled. Everything comes around. It's the way of the circle. Thank you, Ed, a dear, dear man in Kewanee Correctional Center.
Okay, so again, thank you. My name's Eric Anderson. I'm just going to start real quick and talk about my background a little bit and how I come to the work. So I am system impacted, and that is the term we use for people who have experienced incarceration. And so I experienced that. I was locked up for a crime that I committed when I was 15 years old. I was originally sentenced to life without parole. And after about 20 years of that, I was given an opportunity for a resentencing. I was ultimately sentenced to a term of years, and I was released about 2.5 years ago. Since being released, my main job, my real only job, has been circle keeping and circle keeper training with my partner, Sister Janet. And the way that I came to this work was that, as I said, I was originally sentenced to life without parole, and I probably was 15 or 20 years into my incarceration before there was any real signs of hope for myself and any kind of release. And with that being the case, I really had not done much real work on myself in thinking about what had happened, other than this was a thing that I had to live with, and I was paying my punishment. I was doing that. And when I was given this opportunity, when hope really showed up on the horizon for me, and I was able to look at what life might be post-incarceration, I really had to ask myself some real questions about how would I do that, what would that look like, and what do I owe? Like, to have this opportunity, what do I owe in my life? And through a lot of personal things and deep research and reading, I came to restorative practices. As I was going through my resentencing, which took about 2.5 years, in 2015 till 2017, I was connected to Sister Janet through my mom, who does some policy work, some legislative work in Illinois regarding extreme sentencing of juveniles. Janet and I worked on creating a program at the facility that I was in, the last facility where Ed, who the reading came from, was incarcerated at, and we really sought to figure out what could we bring to the DOC, to the Illinois Department of Corrections, that would really create some kind of change, a real impact. And we landed on circle keeping. And for me, I would also like to mention that a coinciding principle for me, and I think it's something that we opened with and was talked about in a big way. Somebody gave me a quote when I was incarcerated that culture is a democracy, and how we act is our vote. How I act every day is my vote in the culture that I live in. And that really put the onus on me of how am I carrying myself every day. Coupled that with my circle experience with Janet when she came in and gave the first circle keeper training that I know of in the Illinois Department of Corrections for people who are currently incarcerated at the time. I saw this is how I can walk the talk of living out what I feel are the core principles of creating a more healthy, beneficial society that does less harm and ultimately, in my hope, in my vision, in my belief, abolishes prisons and that whole traumatic series of the legal system. I want to give Janet a few of these minutes, please.
Thanks, Eric. Well, I want to bring you back to, you, Eric, and I guess you all, to we did that circle training in Kewanee. It was the first training in a facility in Illinois. And Eric was getting out the next month. So this was in March of 2023. We had this circle training. He was on the inside, I'm on the outside. We planned it, came in, did that training. It went really well. At the end of that training, he said to me, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking next time you're here, it's you and me. I'm across from you. We're doing this. And I was like, yes. I mean, this guy has great energy. He's awesome. He's on top of everything. So I was like, absolutely. So that was in March. We did that training. In August, so he got out in April. In August, we were back in that facility doing a second cohort, and he was opposite me as my co-circle keeper. And it was amazing, and it was amazing for the guys who were in there to have him back in there with them. The next month, we were at Stateville Correctional Center. It's closed now. It's a maximum security prison, and it was actually in the movie, I think, The Blues Brothers. It was, yeah, the horrors of it. But anyway, you know, we went, so I didn't know Eric real well. I mean, I was just getting to know him. And we were walking in there. We had to be there for 6 a.m., so I think we were probably there 5:30 or something. In September, it was dark out. And we come through the gatehouse, and then we have to walk to this big, white, pillared building. And it occurred to me, oh, I wonder if Eric was ever locked up here. I don't know, did you say, he was locked up for 28 years, so long time. And I said, hey, were you ever here? And he said, yeah, I was here. Kind of quick, short. And I was like, oh my word. Like, and we're walking back into this maximum security prison. He's been out for 4 months. He was locked up at 15, remind you. And I was like, oh my word. And he said, yeah, a lot of bad things happen to a lot of people here. And a lot of bad things happen to me here. And I have to say, I mean, I was so touched that he said, yes, I'll go to Stateville with you. He never said any of that to me, and here we are walking in, and I don't know what was going through your mind at that time. I don't know if you want to share that, Eric, but yeah, that was very powerful for me and humbling. And
Definitely. Yeah, and thank you for asking about that, because I think it really gets to the heart of maybe the purpose that I have in my life that I see for myself. Kay mentioned in her talk about there's 4 parts to being human that we believe in, and she named the spiritual part as the purpose-making part, and I love that, right? Like, for me, that so speaks to what I'm trying to do. So thank you for that. And yeah, going into Stateville, I arrived in Stateville the first time I was there when I was 18 years old. I had been locked up about 2.5 years, and it was a dark, scary, intimidating place. And that was not an abstract. That was like a real tangible thing at Stateville, and it was an experience being there. I was there about 5 years, my first time there. During my incarceration, I actually was transferred in and out of there a few times. But the reason I say that it connects to my purpose making is when I think about what purpose circles carry for me and what they give me in my life, it's not just the ability to communicate with my peers or people from other groups. It's really an opportunity for me in a therapeutic way to be recognized by people who have gone through the same things that I've gone through and had those experiences. And to be able to bring any modicum, let alone something that is so beautiful and so effective as Circles, to people who are currently incarcerated and experiencing that trauma every day. I thought about Stateville, and when we talked about going there and we were doing the planning and we were thinking about it, I thought about those things that happened to me there. I thought about the things that I witnessed there, the things that I was a part of or that I just saw, and I thought, man, here is something special. Here's an opportunity to really share how I have come to Circles and what Circles have done for me in my personal life with people who I know. I'm a big stressor for I statements. I believe in only owning the thing that I'm talking about, how I feel and I think. But I feel very confident in saying that I know that the impact that Circles have for people who are incarcerated there so outweigh the things that I had to walk through. And I know being in Circle, you know, as much as we are, I know how healing that is for me to be able to do that. So all those things really played a key part for me and what I was feeling in there.
yeah, let's give him a hand for sure. I'd like to share something that Eric and I always share when we're in the prisons doing circle training. And we refer to it as the 3 R's. There are more than 3 R's in restorative justice, but I'm going to focus on the first three because they're foundational, and I think they're so apropos for all of us. I am trying to lean into them. And I got these from Howard Zehr, probably his little book of restorative justice. He's a professor emeritus at Eastern Mennonite University. And he says these are kind of foundational principles in restorative justice. And they are respect, responsibility, and relationship. And I bring those forth because that is Circle for me, and it's also life for me. And what I say in Circle is respect means I'm going to respect myself, and I'm going to respect everyone, each person in front of me, or each person in the circle. Responsibility. I'm going to take responsibility for my thoughts, my words, and my actions. Okay, and I add thoughts in there because I make judgments and assumptions about people, about situations. So I want to become more aware of those, and I want to sort through those and check out my assumptions and see if they're accurate. Respect, responsibility, and relationship. Sorry, thoughts, my words, and my actions. And then relationship is I'm going to say yes to being in relationship with you, okay, with the person in front of me. And I'm going to do that even if you have a different opinion, even if you have hurt me, even if we've had an argument, whatever it is, I'm going to say yes to that relationship. Now, there are boundaries within that, and that's a healthy, healthy discernment, okay? I'm not talking about an unhealthy situation. But I think in our world, if we did this, if we all could say yes to, if I could say yes to all three of these all the time, I would be a much more loving, compassionate, healed being. And I think our world would be if we all could embrace that. To say, yes, I'll be in a relationship with you even though you voted for someone I don't agree with, even though, we had this conflict. So if I have a conflict with Eric, which I do,
Yeah, we do.
somewhat regularly, but you know what? I mean, we are together. We're committed to each other. We're committed to this relationship. And if I say things that hurt him or vice versa, like, okay, maybe we take some space. Okay, let's cool down, whatever. But we're coming back, and we're doing this. So, and I think that's what's needed. And anyway, so I share those three R's with you: respect, relationship, responsibility.
Can I ask, Janet? So we compiled like a short list of some things that we feel are like real accomplishments in the DOC, in the Illinois Department of Corrections. And so I see you have a few things. I just want to say we started with doing Circle Keeper training exclusively for people who were currently incarcerated at a certain facility. Kiwani is the name of it. And we had one staff member in there. The mental health liaison there for us has been an amazing person. Shout out to him. You won't know his name, but Nick Custer definitely deserves to be mentioned every time we talk about the work we do, because he was so instrumental in helping us get our foot in and really get going. He has been through our Circle training about 8 or 10 times now, because he's in every group, so we like to tease him. But we started out strictly for people who were incarcerated, and we have not only, as Janet mentioned, going to other facilities, which is like a new thing in the Illinois Department of Corrections. We also do work with current frontline staff and administrative staff, including correctional officers, lieutenants and sergeants, internal affairs investigator people, leisure time services, and all those things. We have branched out to, I think, 5 or 6 facilities. Will be in December, which is our first Circle Keeper training for incarcerated people and working frontline staff together. There is a culture there in the Department of Corrections. I don't know if I need to name it, but it's thought of as like good guys and bad guys, right? That's a culture that's impressed on people there, and we disagree with that in a huge way. But for people to say, yes, I will be in Circle, I will go through that with the other side of that equation, for me, it's just super healing and impactful. Are there some more things that we could name real quick?
Well, on that, yes, even us working with the staff, and I mentioned this, I think, when I spoke here, just my own transformation about working with staff. I mean, I started working with Eric, and I'm working with the guys, and I hear and experience a lot of what goes on in those facilities. It's not good at the hands of staff. Okay, so my own transformation of saying, like, oh, sitting in Circle with them and having tears come down the faces of staff members in a check-in or after a prompt, my heart was touched, and I thought, oh yeah, similar to a legislator we had come into a Circle. We have to talk about that too. And he said, after we did a little activity with the guys, he said, oh, we're all human. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. So, but you know what? Shame on me. I'm right there, The staff, they're human, and they are products of a toxic environment. And if I was in that environment, I would not be my best self. I mean, what Kate talked about, Circle helps us be our best self. It helps us lean into values and be intentional about how we want to treat one another. So any good I have is, I think, by the grace of God and from my time in Circle. And that Circle continues to ask me and invite me to be and uphold values of respect and mutuality with others.
So, yeah, Janet mentioned a legislator coming in there. So we have a program that we started, or an offshoot of the thing that we do inside the correctional institutions, where we invite lots and lots and lots of Illinois legislators to come, and we get people who say they want to, and occasionally we get some people who agree and show up and come. These are sitting legislators, and sometimes they're chief of staff or other staff members, to sit in Circle with people who are currently incarcerated and hear from them. And for the guys, the men and women who are incarcerated, who participate in this, for them to hear from legislators so that they can have that aha moment and say, like, oh, these are people too. And the reason I bring that up, and the reason I talk about that, is the December training that we're doing that is a mixed group. It's staff and people incarcerated. This was organized and put together in a big way. Like, the catalyst for it is a woman who works at that facility, works at the Graham Correctional Center, and was invited to participate in a staff Circle experience, and was so moved by that, she asked if she could come and be Circle trained as a Circle keeper. And she went back to her facility, and she has instituted Circles there every week. I have friends there who I've been incarcerated with, who I grew up with in prisons, who call me all the time, and they talk about how they're in Circle every week. And this woman, Erin, brings her cloth and her talking pieces, and they talk about their values, and they bring this in. And I'm saying, this is a person who was a correctional officer for years and then moved into this role she has now, and she's the volunteer services coordinator, which is like a nice title and awesome to work with. And she has taken this culture is a democracy and how I act is my vote to her heart, and I see it in her, and she is amazing to work with. And so I lost my wallet the other day. Spent yesterday 3 hours in the Illinois DMV, which I don't know if the Minnesota DMV or the Colorado DMV is the same thing, but it was 3 hours of not heaven. And then I drove 7 or 8 hours to come here and talk about what Janet and I do. And the only thing I'm asking from you all who got to hear from Kay is, what are you doing with your vote? I'm here. This is my vote. I want to be here with you. I want to talk about this work. I want to build community. I was talking earlier about my community is the men and women who are incarcerated or experienced incarceration in Illinois. And also another community I have is Circles and Circle keepers. And I spend a lot of time in prison with people who are experiencing incarceration. I don't get to spend a lot of time with Circle and Circle keepers in this way, right? It's Saturday. It's a social day for me. I'm talking with my friends, my community, and I want to know, what are we doing? What are we doing?
I love that. And I presume, he's referring to his comment earlier about culture as a democracy.
Yes.
And how you act is your vote. Okay, so culture being a democracy. I want to share, so we mentioned that we do these circle trainings, and these trainings are 4 days long, like 7 hours a day. So just to give you context, some of you here have been through circle training, and all of you will experience circle today, which I'm thrilled about. I want to share a few additional things about the circle training, or circles we're doing in one facility, Illinois River. And as Eric said, we're doing circles with the individuals and also with the staff. But in that facility, they're separate, okay? We have had some circles at Kewanee where we had a staff member sit in with the guys who are incarcerated. And that is unheard of. I'm just going to say, very countercultural. Even just for us to be having staff circles. To be having staff circles with Eric. Eric was incarcerated at this Illinois River prison, like 4 years ago? Is that?
Yeah.
It's like 4 years ago. So we're going in there, and the warden is saying to the staff, hey, do you remember that guy, Eric? Yeah, he's coming in. Yeah, he was the one on a life sentence. He's coming in. He's going to do a training for you.
Yeah, for you.
How do you think that's sounding? What? So it is, honestly, we always say this, we're like on this RJ train, restorative justice train, and we're just like hanging on because doors keep opening and we keep hitting new stops, and we're just trying to stay, clinging on to this train that's moving fast. And so there is great hope in this, and in our world where there's a lot that can drain, or a lot that causes me despair. There are so many good things happening as well on the ground level and on the grassroots level. And hopefully today, this is maybe the start of it, or a little inspiration for all of us here to continue that and to have that hope. We are in the Jubilee Year of Hope, right? So we're clinging to that as we move toward the end of the year. So we have staff members and those who do say yes, and we've done 5 cohorts of staff in that facility. With Eric and I have done a training for them, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, and they tell the other staff. So we've trained about 50, or sat in circle with about 50 staff members, including, as he said, sergeants, lieutenants, COs. And we are trying to bring about cultural transformation in that facility. And we have all 3 wardens are on board. And recently we had a meeting with them, and the one assistant warden said, I want to have circle keepers in every unit of this facility, and I want them doing circles. Now, this is huge, and what we're going, because at Logan, the women's facility, the women are like, will you please ask the warden that we could circle up anywhere, just like a circle in the chapel, like it's illegal to circle up. Because originally it's like, oh no, that's a gang. If you're getting together, you're probably doing gang activity. So this is really huge that they want to have these circles. What we're going to do is go back to those guys who have been circle trained, sit in circle with them, say, hey, the warden suggested this. What do you think of it? Because we talk about subsidiarity. We're going to ask the guys, how do you think this could work? Do you want to do this? Is this going to fly? Because they're the ones impacted. They're the ones who are going to be the circle keepers. So I think just keeping true to every voice is valued and subsidiarity. I wanted to just give a couple comments from gentlemen on the inside. One gentleman who went through this circle training in Stateville said, I've been in counseling for 35 years in IDOC. And he said, nothing has been as powerful as these 4 days sitting with you all. Another gentleman said, these guys all, it was at Illinois River, and they all lived in the same unit, this particular group. And he said, I am sad that he was there for a year living with them. He said, I'm sad that I lost a year of knowing you the way I know you now in this facility. I've lost a year. So I think of that, all the people like that that I pass a judgment on. I don't know them. And I'm missing out on who they are. As Kay said in the seven core, you know, we all have goodness and power and something inside of us. Yeah, something awesome inside of us, right? So who are all the people that I'm missing out on their goodness and their beauty because I'm not getting to know them or giving them that chance? But I was very touched at that gentleman's comment. And several other guys, when they come to this circle training, have said, I need to learn how to talk to people and how to relate to people. Because for 30 years, all we've done is close up, close up, close up, and protect. Because I don't know how to speak to anybody. And it's heartbreaking for me to hear that.
Yeah, I think I would just briefly say that one of my favorite quotes from one of the guys is on, I think it was day 4, which is our last day of circle training. We were doing our checkout, and he said he was checking out. He said, I'm checking out reluctantly. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's probably one of my favorites because it just says for me what circles are. Against my will was what he said. I'm checking out against my will. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was so good.
Yeah. Maybe that's probably a good place for us to wrap up. I know we're going to have some time, and I want to share that with you guys. So, okay, so that's an amazing question, and the answer is 100% willingly. We talked this morning, there was talk this morning about everything in the circle, and we really try to stress this, is an invitation to share. Nothing is a mandate, nothing is a order, there is no requirement for people. We do a strictly volunteer thing, and just a very quick anecdote about Janet and I and our first circle experience at the facility when I was incarcerated, when we were trying to get this put together, which was like, it's a new thing, and a department, an entity like the Illinois Department of Corrections is steeped in about 100 years of not doing new things generally. So we were working on this new thing, and I was inside, I was incarcerated, and Janet and I and Nick Custer were on phone calls and trying to organize how many people would it be, what did it look like, what could Janet bring into the facility that was permissible. And Janet, about the day before or a few days before, asked me on a phone call, so everybody there knows, Eric, that this is a voluntary process, and they're free to leave whenever they want. And I was like, yeah, they know that they committed to 4 days in that chair, and they will be there for that. And Janet was like, on the phone, I could see her grasping and saying, no, that is not. And it wasn't that they were mandated. It was that I asked them, hey, please don't commit to this. If you are going to take the space, we have a limited number. This is a brand new thing, and we want to hit a home run here. So don't say you're going to be there if you're not. And they were all there. They were there.
It was like good cop, bad cop, because we got in the circle. I was like, "What? Thank you for saying yes," and you all offered and volunteered, you know. And then I said, "And if it's not for you, it's okay." And Eric was like, you know, nobody's moving because this has to work. Well, it was. He was like, "This needs to work. This can't go sideways. Like, this is our pilot. We need to show the administration this is good. So you can't be backing out. If you're not going to do it, don't come the first day, you know."
Thank you for that question.
I did want to say one more thing about the staff circles. A common thing we hear a person say who works there, "I hate coming to work every day." And how long have you worked here? 15 years. So, I mean, that's awful for that person. That is awful. And it's like, okay, like, we need to do something. And I say that, what do you all want? What do you want this place to be like? Because you run this place, okay? Like, not the warden, you, COs, lieutenants, majors, you run it. But also, how do you think that impacts the guys who are incarcerated? If you hate your job every day, like, are you like the most pleasant person to be around? And you're in a position of great authority? So that's another reason, like, we know the work we do, like, for the staff, it's valid just for the staff. And I know it's also going to impact everybody around them. So that's another reason that we're so, if we want cultural transformation in that prison, in those prisons, we have to work with everybody.
So the question is there requirements for people to participate? Is there any criteria that we hold people to? We do not. Janet and I do not, other than just come, like, and be here. But yeah, from the administrations, from them, it initially, we started at Kiwani, and I had helped start a mentorship program there, and so we were plucking from that group, people who were, there was a curriculum involved and some investment of personal time and energy for guys, and so we culled from that group. And as it went wider, as I was released and people filtered in and out of there, that just kind of became the handoff there. And we are very deferential to who is chosen for that. And so at the other facilities, we initially started working with North Park Theological Seminary, where they have a master's degree in Christian Restorative Arts program that they run inside. It's a very small program. It's a very small program relative to the size of the Department of Corrections. But so they asked us to come in. Their guys had read about circle training that other guys had written about in a newsletter that is distributed to people incarcerated in the DOC. So they read this. They were in this restorative arts class, and they went to their instructors, and they said, we want circle training. Like, this is what we're doing. So we used that group, and we were working with that. We worked with DePaul University, and they have a group that they run. And so we are very deferential as far as our criteria. The department, I think they've been picking people who seem like they are invested in really bettering themselves of their own volition and including them. I think they're also invested in it being a home run every time right now.
I'm just going to ask for us to hold the questions. We're just about done with their
Yes.
time, and you'll have time to talk with them afterwards. So just to keep the program moving. Thank you.
You'll have time to listen to him, I think is more the.
No, yeah, that's true.
So you finish, or I'm not sure if you're finished, but yeah, please.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm going to say we're done, because,
And thank you. And thank you again.
yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. My work wife.
Thank you so much, Eric and Janet. We're taking a break now. We'll gather back. Please come back to your seats before 11.